For weeks, clout-thirsty Twitter accounts have been posting random rumors about who Nebraska's next head coach is going to be, with almost zero evidence to support their claim. And I refuse to make video reactions to rumors that don't make any sense, but in 15 days, Trev Alberts is going to announce his next head coach, so we know he's got to be getting close to figuring out who that is. Deion Sanders is the newest name being mentioned, and it actually comes from a credible source. With his recent success as a head coach at Jackson State, I think it's time we actually talk about how he'd fit in at Nebraska. So today, I'm giving you my thoughts on this rumor from Zach Smith to let you know why I believe there's some truth to it, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on Deion Sanders as a Big Ten head coach. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss any of the videos I drop. And if you'd like to see Deion and Lincoln, hit the like button now and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
Yet across midfield. Touchdown, Nebraska! Omar Manning.
This morning, former Ohio State wide receivers coach Zach Smith dropped a podcast, and he said that he spoke to a friend of his who's currently coaching at an HBCU. And that HBCU coach told him that Deion Sanders personally called to ask him if he would leave his current school to be a coordinator at Nebraska if Deion ended up taking that job as head coach. That coach supposedly said yes to the offer, and Deion broke down who he wanted to keep from Jackson State and who he was looking at from other schools to build his next staff in Lincoln. Now, if you've listened to Zach Smith's podcast before, you know that he hates thirsty media members who try to break news for clout. So my initial reaction was that he's telling the truth. And he also mentioned that nothing's ever certain until it's in writing and that this is supposedly a verbal agreement at this point. So things could change if a bigger school offers him or if Nebraska ends up deciding to go a different direction. I saw former Nebraska basketball player Eric Strickland said that he texted Deion today and the rumor was shut down with a no truth to it. But we watched Lincoln Riley live for an entire month knowing full well that he was on his way to LA. Either way, this is the most credible coaching rumor we've heard this entire season, so we've got to talk about it. And if you remember a couple months back, Zach came on my live show and we had an hour-long discussion about the Nebraska job and what his thoughts on the program were. So we're definitely going to have him back on in December to talk about the future of this team once Trev finally locks somebody down. When you make a list of every name that's been thrown around, most of them are either underwhelming or unrealistic, and there have only been a few guys who get the majority excited. But I've been talking to a few of my friends these last couple weeks, and we've all kind of agreed that the most likely thing to happen on November 26th is that Trev Alberts ends up going with a name a lot of us weren't really thinking was a possibility. Deion's 100% one of those names that most of us don't look at as realistic. In fact, he's so unrealistic that this is the first coach I've seen rumors about on Twitter where people aren't even entertaining it. He's so off the wall that Nebraska fans are just messaging me links laughing, not asking me if it's true or if it's a legit possibility. But I'm not here for fun or entertainment today. I'm here because I think there's some legitimate truth to this one, and although I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think anything's solidified, I am going to tell you why this hire would or wouldn't make sense, and I'll tell you how I'd feel about it. We'll start off with why hiring Deion would make sense and what he brings to the table. Number one, Deion Sanders is a winner. 2-time Super Bowl champion, 8-time Pro Bowler, a college football and NFL Hall of Famer, and SWAC Coach of the Year in 2021. Everything this guy's done in football at any level, whether he was a player, a coordinator at a high school, or a head coach in college, he's been a winner. There are few people on this planet who bleed success, and it doesn't matter if it's in sports, business, friendship, or whatever else they do, you just know they're always going to have a positive outcome. His record in 3 years as head coach at Jackson State is 23-5, with 3 of those losses coming in his first year during COVID. In year 2, his team finished 11-2, and now in year 3, they're 9-0 with enough talent to finish undefeated. Say what you want about his success being in the SWAC or at an HBCU, but I think it's hard to ignore this guy's proven track record of success wherever he goes. Number 2, he's a proven recruiter at the highest level. Nebraska hasn't landed a 5-star recruit in 17 years. Deion landed the number 1 player in the country at an HBCU. That's not Major Division I, that's not even Group of 5. That's Division I AA, and that's unheard of. In 2021, he brought in 4 5-stars who had offers from Michigan, Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, and every other school these guys dreamed of playing at. If you gave Deion amazing facilities, a big brand name like Nebraska, a serious NIL fund, and a chance to play in games against Big Ten blue bloods like Ohio State, Penn State, and USC, this guy would land a top 10 class nationally every single year, and with 9 wins, he could probably get closer to the top 5. I know most of us are expecting 15 or more current players to leave in the portal come December, but I'm guessing Mickey and Deion could probably retain most of the key pieces, and guys like Marcus Washington, O'Shawn Mathis, and Anthony Grant would all come back for another year. Number 3, he's a program and a culture builder. In the 6 years before Jackson State hired Coach Prime, they went through 3 coaches who only won about 30% of the games they coached. They hadn't won a conference championship since 2007, and their last division title came in 2013. In year 2, Deion won both. He's taken Jackson State from a consistent loser to a top 10 team up there with North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and Montana State, which are all schools with proven track records and great coaches who develop NFL talent every year. He's built something special off his own brand name, and if you attach Coach Prime to any Power 5 school with decent resources, he's going to turn him into a contender pretty quick. Number 4, he'd make Nebraska football fun again. The life's been sucked out of Nebraska football because they haven't won anything in years. Like the idea or not, there's no arguing that the energy would be high, players would be happy and they'd be enjoying the game, and fans would get a ton of content from their head coach, and this program wouldn't feel dead anymore. Recruiting would be at an all-time high with Mickey and Deion hitting the South hard, and we'd have as focused of a staff as we've seen come in since they've got so much more to prove than anybody else would. Now why hiring Deion wouldn't make sense. Number 1, Trev doesn't want to win the press conference and make a flashy hire. Outside of Lane Kiffin, this is about as flashy as it gets. If Trev really is set on hiring someone like a Stoops, Leipold, or Rule, I'd be shocked to learn that he put Sanders in that same group. Those other guys are traditional Midwest-style coaches who are a little more low-key, and Deion's the kind of guy who would bring his Lambo to Lincoln just so recruits could get pictures in it outside the stadium. I'm not saying I don't like that and that I don't like the idea of a flashy hire. It would just go against what Trev said he was looking for. Number 2, he doesn't have any Power 5 or Big Ten coaching experience. Scott Frost's biggest mistake was not adjusting to the Big Ten, and his team struggled on both sides of the ball during his time because of that. The safe play is to bring in a staff who understands what it takes to beat schools like Michigan, Iowa, and Wisconsin. And although Matt Rule, Mark Stoops, and Lance Leipold haven't had to, we can assume they'd be willing to adjust. I'm guessing Prime staff would be too, but if they've never coached at a high level like the SEC, the Big 12, or the Big 10, how much of their experience is applicable, and would they be able to win more than 6 games even if they have a top 3 roster in the conference? I honestly have zero clue if this will happen or if Zach's source exaggerated or not, but I do have a pretty good feeling that Trev and Deion have at least had a conversation at this point. And I personally love the idea and think a Deion Sanders-led staff with Mickey and Bill Busch around to support would be amazing to see, and even if their ceiling was 8 or 9 wins, at least the program gets pulled out of the gutter. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Do you think Zach's telling the truth, or is he just getting thirsty for views? Would Deion take this job if it was offered, or is he waiting for a school down south to call? And do you think he could get this team back to a bowl next year, or would he be in for just as long of a rebuild as anybody else we've talked about so far? I know a lot of the current players would be happy with this move, and plenty of fans would be too, but who knows what's going to happen, because we won't know for a few more weeks. But until next time, thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Go Big Red.